Hello, my name is Jasmine Woodard with NACE, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Jobs to be Done, Designing Human-First Ecosystems in the Age of Artificial Everything. We encourage you to actively participate in the chat and please post questions in the Q&A. It is my pleasure to introduce Sandra Buati Ramos, Chief Learning and Career Architect with Resi, Marie Zimenoff, CEO of Career Thought Leaders, and Zabiz Munoz Ismi, Assistant Vice President of Inclusive Leadership and Learning at American University. Take it away, Sandra.
You're on mute, Sandra.
Oh my gosh, in 2025, that's still happening. How embarrassing. But no, happy to be here with everybody. I know that we've got some great people on the call here. Zaibis Munoz Ismay was my former assistant vice president when we actually implemented the things that we're going to be covering today. And Marie Zemenoff is just a treasure of a human being who also was a huge part in the transformation that we were able to execute at the institution because of her amazing programs and certifications that she offers. And so I just wanted to thank them both for sharing their time with us today to help us talk more in detail about how we transformed our office from one that was seemingly underperforming to one that was able to meet students' needs, meet them where they are, and actually turn around key metrics for our office to elevate not only our relationships with students and our institutional reputation, but staff morale and staff retention. All things that are very important in the age of the enrollment cliff, but in general for how we're actually interacting with students in meaningful ways. And I think, as the title kind of noted, there is a huge focus on technology and innovation, particularly around AI. And many institutions have not yet figured out what that's going to look like. But the one thing that we want to drive home is that we have to be able to maintain that human interaction and that human centered support that we're offering to students. And so we're all happy to be here today to talk more about how we were able to do that and how we may be able to help you transform your offices in the future. So I wanted to start just by going over our initial outcomes. So if we're talking about something and why you should implement it, it's probably good to give you some of our data first so that you can determine whether or not it's even worth listening to the rest of our webinar. And so we used Jobs to be Done framework as a form of outcome-driven innovation to really revamp our services, our connections with students, and provide our institution with concrete data about how not only we were improving our service offerings and our relationship to students, but how we were contributing to recruitment and retention. And many people struggle with that idea in senior administration, and Zaibis will talk more about that today. Understanding how the Career Center actually contributes to these things, and there's a wealth of research on that. But we were able to provide really concrete data with our outcomes. And so the things that we did that we're talking about today drove over 94% student satisfaction, a 94% rate of students' sense of belonging, and a 71 NPS score. And so that's an extremely high score when you look at the benchmarks, and we can talk more about that later on. But we wanted to give you an overview of how this can actually help you improve your metrics. And if you haven't started collecting this data yet, Zaibis can give you a lot of information about how to do that later and why that's going to be important to your senior administrators. So Zaibis, do you want to take it away here?
Sure. Thanks, Sandra. So hi, everyone. Saidi, so excited to be here with you all. Really talking about kind of what we did and how we did it. The reality is that we're in a time now where students are they need access to their things quickly. They don't really operate on our institutional timelines. I think, as Sandra said, schools are trying to figure out how do they incorporate innovation, technology, and then what pockets of the institution get it first. So we took advantage and said, well, why not redesign a career center to really look at all of the ways that we can meet the urgent need in times that are uncertain, right? I think students are looking at how can I get the stuff that I need really quickly. Our traditionals model is really working. It's, not immediate. The office operates from 9 to 5. So how do I get stuff when the office is closed? Most students are looking at their email. If they look at their emails in the evening or wee hours of the night, so we looked at, is there a 24/7 model that we can create that would meet that need? Also, as the senior leader, I had taken over a department and I was just getting feedback from all across the institution about, hey, this is not working, or we'd love to see X, or we really would love to see Y. Like, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, don't you worry, I'm up for the challenge. So Sandra and I really looked at, she proposed a lot of great ideas. And one of these ideas was the reality that we're not meeting the needs. If I had at the time advisors that were there from 9 to 5 and they only get to book maybe 6 or 7 or appointments during the day, how many other students am I not meeting with? How many are we not reaching on the average day, week, semester? If we're averaging 400 appointments a month, how many more could we access if we created more services that meet their needs? Because students don't really kind of operate only in that timeline because they're going to class also. So we really had to think a lot about what could we do in also this digital age and this digital world where we're competing with misinformation and stuff that they're getting from the internet, that we could kind of infuse into our center that would really give them state of the art technology, but also the expertise from our staff.
Right. And so, using jobs to be done as a framework, we created our own plan to transform our career services model from start to finish. And one of the key points of jobs to be done theory is that a customer, right, and our customer in this sense is the student. They don't hire, or they don't seek a solution or a service, or sorry, a service or a product. What they're hiring us for is to provide a solution. And if we take what we think applies in product innovation and apply it in the context of higher education to those that we're serving, so our core customers, the student, the alumni, how can we make sure that we're the person or the team or the office that they're hiring as a solution to get the jobs that they need to get done? And so there's a great quote in the book, and I think everyone quotes it. So if you've heard it before, I apologize. People don't want, a half-inch drill bit. They want a quarter or a half-inch hole. And the point of that is, it doesn't matter what the product is. Our job is to be able to provide the solution to the person who needs it, because they don't really care so much about the product or the features. What they're buying into is, how is that product? How are those features going to help me make progress to meet the need that I have? And can it help me do that faster? Can it help me do that with less friction? And our job as the service providers, as the coaches, as the career office, is to figure out what are the needs of our populations, what solutions are they looking for, and how do we provide that solution in a way that reduces friction and helps them get all the different jobs done by meeting multiple layers of needs. And so this really is adapted from product innovation, but we're using it in higher education career services to transform how we think about our customer and our populations and the things that we're providing to them. And one of the big points of the jobs to be done framework that I loved and took some convincing among our senior administrators was to understand that there's a new way to segment our customers. And the point of the jobs to be done framework is that we shouldn't be segmenting our customers based on basic demographics. And the demographics that we typically use in career services or other offices in higher education is class year, right? So there's a 4-year career plan. And when you're a first year student, you're doing this. When you're a second year student, you're doing this. When you're a third year student, you're doing this. And when you're in your final year, you're doing this. And that leads to a lot of confusion and really doesn't serve students well because, as we all know, and chaos of careers theory and the BEAST framework would note, career development isn't linear for most people, right? And there's things that we can't control, and we're in an age of AI disruption in our workforce. And so there's a lot of fears and anxieties that come with that. But there's also shifts in how people navigate their career journeys. And so if we look at students not by class year, but by the jobs that they need to get done, we can create programs and services and solutions that help them make progress toward their goals in ways that are more targeted and tailored and individualized and resonate with them in ways that are more meaningful. And so if you look at the traditional, I'm going to have a program for a class year, you're going to get generic programming that might not speak to everyone. And so students may or may not come to that program, or they may or may not be satisfied. And then you're going to see the example here, it's a senior boot camp. And we're going to have this boot camp in the fall to make sure that all seniors are prepared for graduation. But those things typically are going to be very broad and very generic and not hit home on those individual needs that the student has. And that's because it's assuming typically uniform needs. And we know from our experience that customers typically aren't going to operate that way. And so if we use jobs to be done, we look at, what jobs does a student need to be done, and we'll segment by those. And in that scenario, maybe somebody is going through a career change or a major change. I might have a senior who's reconsidering their career options at the same time that I have a first year or a second year student exploring careers. And so if I base my programming around that job that needs to be done, exploring careers, finding new options, I can attract both of those populations to this service or program that we're creating, and we're going to have more targeted innovation for them. And so we're segmenting less based on things that don't matter but are probably helpful to the institution, but really not speaking to the student as, hey, you're considering my needs. And in this way, using jobs to be done is a much smarter way to create programming, to create solutions that we're offering. And so all of these things lead to better programming for students, more tailored and targeting outcomes, and better solutions. And we know, based on jobs to be done framework, but also our own individual experiences, if we're not able to provide the solution that the person is looking for, they're unlikely to come to us when that emergent need comes up again. And I typically, when I give presentations, will give the example of, I'm vegan, right? And I want ranch dressing. So I'm going to go to the store that has my vegan ranch dressing when I need that. But if the store that I go to doesn't have it, doesn't carry it, that first time that I look for that solution at that store, if they don't carry it, I'm never again, in my mind, going to that store for that solution. And so if they didn't carry it the first time I was looking for it, I'm not going back to them for that. I might go back to them for other things in the future if, by and large, it was a good experience, but I'm not going to hire that store for that solution. And that's where we lose our students, right? They might come to something, but it doesn't feel tailored to them. And so, hey, you know what? This really wasn't what I was looking for. It didn't feel like it was built for me. And so I'm never coming back to the Career Center again. Or we have an example that Marie will go over in a minute of, hey, I needed access to a career development solution for helping me write a resume or prepare for an interview. And it was an emergent need. But when I went to the career center, they didn't have an appointment. There wasn't something that was available to me that day. And so because it wasn't able to help me, they weren't able to provide that solution. I'm not going back when that need emerges again. And I think sometimes that's when we get that feedback from the parents and the Facebook pages and the people calling and saying that their kid wasn't satisfied with the solutions that were provided. And it's because we weren't able to provide the solution in that moment. And so responsiveness becomes very, very important, and anticipating accessibility for emerging needs and changing our model becomes really important. And this is where you'll see that happen. When a customer or when a student is moving toward progress and a need presents, they're going to go through this, 7-step process of, hey, I need something, right? I need interview help because I just got an email from the recruiter and I have to interview in the next 2 days. That's defining the need. And they're going to move through all these different points along the way. And so, what they're doing next is locating the resources. What are all of the available solutions that are open to me right now to be able to meet that need that I've just defined? And so, if I'm going to the Career Center and I'm saying, hey, I need help right now, I need to practice interviewing because I just got an invitation to an interview. Most of our systems are not built for that. We might have some drop in hours, but it might not be something useful, especially if it's after 5, right? And so they're locating their available resources. And if we are a potential solution, then we stay in this process with them. And then they're going to prepare for, okay, which ones am I going to be utilizing? And then they're going to confirm, is this really something I want to move forward with? And then they're going to execute on that solution plan. And then they'll monitor and modify as needed. And so, if the idea was to go to the Career Center and prepare with them for the interview process and do the practice, and then they're going to confirm, hey, I am confident, I am ready to execute on this interview. And then they go through their interview process and they get great feedback, and they're monitoring the feedback from the organization, whether or not it's moving to the next stage or actually getting feedback on how they performed. They're taking that and internalizing that and thinking about it and applying it to this entire journey, whether or not they're consciously aware of it. And then they'll modify and make different plans. So if going to the Career Center was a great solution and it was accessible and it did help me and I did perform well in my interview process, then my modification is probably, hey, I'm going to make sure that I keep them top of mind for next time. The modification, if we weren't available, if we weren't able to meet their needs, is probably, hey, I'm not going to go to the Career Center for that solution, and I might find another solution moving forward. And so this is very broadly talking about a detailed process, but we have a short time with you today. So I want to kick it over now to Marie so that she can talk more in detail about what happens when an emerging need presents.
Thank you, Sandra. So this is your turn actually to participate, because when clients, students come to you, maybe even alumni, they come to you and they say, I need a resume. What do they actually mean? What is being expressed when they say, I need a resume? And we'd love for you to share some of those thoughts in the chat. And Sandra has some prizes for interaction. So when a student or client comes to you and they say, I need a resume, what are they actually saying? What are some of the unspoken questions, concerns behind that statement? I need a job. I want to apply for internships. I need help articulating my experiences. I need help organizing my thoughts. I need a job search strategy. I need guidance. Maybe I'm not getting the results I want. Career exploration. Maybe I feel behind. I need help with the layout. I need an interview in all caps. I love that one. I have a class assignment, so it might be not even a job related need. It may be a class related need. That's good to recognize. How can I compete for jobs? I'm not sure what I'm doing. Yeah, so there's all of these unspoken needs of various levels underneath when someone says, I need a resume. And that's exactly what the Jobs to be Done framework can help people understand and can help us understand when someone comes in and says, I need a resume. So we treat it as a job request, right? I need a resume. Great, let's get them a resume. But in Jobs to be Done terms, it's only the surface of all of these other problems that you all are sharing in the chat. So this statement can contain 4 distinct types of needs, each kind of corresponding to the job that the student is trying to get done. So at the visible level, right, we see I need a job, I need a document, maybe to apply to a job, or as some of you said, maybe even for a class assignment. And so we want to clarify that straightforward job that they're trying to get done. But there are some other layers that we want to peel back. So what's being stated, but then what's unspoken, and articulating what they might not even be able to describe that they need to solve, and they feel like they need help solving that. They can't fully solve it on their own. And so, how can we help them recognize some of these other needs? So, there's the frustrations that they're sharing with us, and how can we create the pathway to resolution? So, the student knows the goal to create a resume, to tell their story, and maybe they can even express some of the barriers. Someone said format, right? Or maybe they don't know what to say. And that is not a problem of motivation, but maybe translation or understanding. And those are the latent needs that students might feel, but they can't say aloud. Like, I'm not sure I'm good enough, or I don't have a strategy, or I don't know what companies are really looking for. And that's the difference between those explicit or articulated needs and then the latent ones underneath. And this is where the jobs to be done theory can move from function to feeling. And it's actually one of my favorite things to do is use the resume as a coaching tools, because it opens up so many other conversations that the client wants to have, or maybe doesn't know they need to have, but that we do, and we can use the resume to ask those questions. So that hidden motivation, that internal friction, the uncertainty that they're struggling with around all the things related to their job search, and looking at it through the jobs to be done framework can really help us pull out those other pieces and realize that they're not just asking for a resume or a template, which can be easy to shove into their hands, but that they have these functional, emotional, and social needs that we can use this conversation to address and really dive deeper. And so, as we look at that, then we can go into brainstorming some of the other options that they might be asking for. So, I think you've got the four, yeah, functional, emotional, social here. Help me create a document that it communicates my qualifications so that I can apply. Help me feel confident and capable and less anxious. And this is a challenge that I know your technology process kind of helped solve, Sandra, is that doing this at scale is the challenge, helping people really dive into their story and their brand so that they can tell the deeper information and they can build their confidence at scale. And I love that some of the solutions that you built using the tech tools went beyond just a template or a formula for their resume, and it really helped them dig out these other aspects that build the emotional confidence as well. And then the social of how do I be seen as legitimate. There's just so powerful conversations that the simple resume can bring up.
And I just want to note, none of that would have been possible without Marie and having gone through her Academy Certified Resume Writer certification process, which we're going to talk more about now. And hopefully, sorry, everyone in the chat, hopefully my mic volume is better now. All right, so I'm going to kick it over to Zybes to talk more about our 3-pillar system that we executed to drive the results.
Absolutely. So the first thing that we kind of looked at is in rebuilding the department is Sandra pitched to me, Zyvies, we need to kind of leave the antiquated advising model behind and let's make sure that we're transferring to a coaching centered model. And I was like, tell me more things that I need to understand as I'm learning this department. And we looked at a formal coaching philosophy. And also as a leader of the unit, I wanted to see, I had a department that had super high turnover. There was not a lot of retention. My expertise in research was in retention. So how do I do that and invest in times as a senior leader that I know budgets are super tight? Sandra was like, Zyvies, I really think that we need to change all of our job descriptions, and any person that we hire is going to get this certification to be a certified resume writer. And I was like, how much is it? Tell me what it is. And it was just really a no-brainer for me to make sure that every person got this training. And we were creating a new standard baseline of certification and expertise, and that the quality that our customers or clients, which are our students and their families, were going to get was going to be at a level that we thought was excellence. And so We did that right away. I was like, sure, here's the P card. What's the budget transfer? Let's do it. Every person that was currently on staff was trained and went through this pretty intense, rigorous program that was worth it, right? We saw immediate results. The feedback that I was seeing as the senior leader that came through me, either formally or informally, from parents on Facebook, via email, from deans, from faculty, was not great. And we saw an immediate turnaround right away after our coaches finished their training and started meeting with students. Amazing results, right? We saw a 180 in support. We saw that we were creating an infrastructure of trust and really equipping our staff to guide students and making sure that they understand that this was a relationship that they were building to meet their needs in a space where they felt comfortable to do it. And we were also addressing a lot of accessibility, a lot of identity, a lot of things that we had seen information that we were not necessarily meeting the need at the time. I saw a question earlier about belonging. At the same time, part of my role was also looking at belonging across the institution. So I took advantage to see, like, how can I integrate the ideas of belonging and looking at the data that we had been gathering and how I can shift the data that we will be gathering that will foster this confidence of belonging from our clients, our customers, and families. Like, we had a lot of families that were involved in their students' access to the career center and access to our coaches and access to the team. And we wanted to build on that. Sandra did a lot of partnership with our parent and family office because we saw more and more that parents were emailing us and calling us. And we were like, well, yeah, sure. Look at what we did. We just created all of our coaches to be certified, to be, expert resume writers. And the other thing that we did is really look at what other technology could I give them, right? What other access did we assessed all of our current tools, and some of them I was like, okay, it's time to sunset these tools because they're just not it right now. They're not it anymore. Our use is not good. Our data wasn't good from that. So I was like, let's get rid of it. Like, why are we paying all this money for these tools that really aren't successful and our students aren't using in the ways that we need to? Um, the last part was looking at the 24/7 digital ecosystem. Sandra was like, Zyres, I have this great idea. And she wrote me this memo and she like presented it and pitched it. And I was like, this is amazing, right? Like, we have limitations now by how many coaches, and every senior leader knows that you have only a certain amount of full-time salary lines, and I can't get any more salary lines, but how do I reach more students without burning out my team? So we're like, let's create a 24/7 accessible feature. And she created all these modules and created a whole ecosystem of courses and technology and innovation and all these things that students can access when they needed it in real time, right? They didn't have to maybe make an appointment, and then when they logged on to make an appointment, the next appointment is in 3 weeks because it's around the career fair time. They were able to access information in real time to find the stuff they needed. We used so much technology to create actual like AI people. Like, Sandra had a person, her digital form that was giving presentations and talking students through the course. So it wasn't like the student was also navigating the course on their own. And we tried to also meet universal design, which was really important to me, and accessibility. So we met multiple modes and modalities of need while also creating 24/7 access. And as a senior leader, I can tell you, and for those directors that are on the team, you have to speak to your audience. I knew that my senior leaders above me wanted to know about how much was this going to cost? Was this going to increase retention? And show me the data. Do I have real data points to prove what I'm trying to do? So all of the research that Sandra did, I was like, Sandra, that's beautiful. I need you to create this into an executive summary sheet, memo format, because that's what my leadership likes. They want to glance at this, they want to see what the facts are. And then also, we tailored it to audience. So I knew that if I was speaking to admissions, this is the facts that they wanted to know about this, right? How could they sell this when they were on the road and recruiting? If I was talking to my budget and finance office that was asking me, why was I sunsetting a program that we had or a contract for 5 or 6 or 10 plus years, I had to prove the facts using the data as a senior leader. So if you're trying to convince your AVPs or VPs, make sure you have the facts and the data and understand, like, what is it that your senior leader wants to know? Like, what sells them? What draws their attention? Is it, I mean, everyone's looking at the budget right now, but the big ones are retention, right? Retention, meeting the needs. Can we service more students? Can we provide excellent customer service and support? Is it part of a wraparound services model? Does it meet universal design? How can we be special as an institution? And what are we doing that nobody else is doing? So I kind of helped Sandra package all of these things in her genius. And I was like, yes, I will help pave the way. I support you. Also, as a senior leader, I made sure that I knew the things that they were doing, right? I wanted to make sure that if I was questioned in a meeting or if I was somewhere else and they're like, what is the Career Center doing? I was like, actually, this is what they're doing and why. And here are the data points. And here is what we've collected thus far. And here is how it's happening. And here is how it's already improving XYZ things. So I made sure that I was also informed with the facts so I could always support them, because whenever there's change, there's always going to be feedback and critique, but making sure that I was helping to kind of craft the narrative that it was everything we were doing was positive and was bringing the Career Center into 2025.
And I'm not going to let Zybes off the hook quite yet, because we all know that we're being asked to do more with less. And everyone wants to engage with all students for recruitment and retention. And what is every student getting access to? But we're not able to scale the staff, right? And so in this scenario, I just want to point out, much like all of you, Zybes had actually shrunk my staff while asking me to scale expertise and services and increase student satisfaction and increase student engagement. And increase their sense of belonging. And so this is what the ecosystem approach was about. And like Zybes had mentioned, we wanted something that was available to a student athlete who's traveling. We wanted something that was available to somebody who was working and involved in multiple student groups and was only able to engage after 9 p.m. And in the first 4 days of the launch of the 24/7 ecosystem facilitated through Canvas, we saw that most of our student engagement was in the evenings, overnights, during hours when the Career Center was closed. And we had high peaks between probably midnight and 4 a.m., where we had a lot of different student engagement. And we don't have time to get into all the stats here, but it's important to understand, like, this is not the first time that somebody has done this. And I think there was a school that won an award a few years ago for creating an online course system. But we couldn't afford a career solution that aggregated all of our resources for us. And so what I did was I built a shell platform in Canvas for the Career Center. I built my own courses because I wasn't satisfied with the career education that was available on the market. And I knew that I probably had better access to research and data and learner experience approaches that were interactive. And we took all of that and we built this online system that not only created courses for students that I felt were going to be better for them and create better learning outcomes, but we also aggregated all of their digital resource systems. And so we would often hear like, oh, I didn't know we had this resource, or, oh, you had this available to you 24/7, you just didn't click the link. And it was because, oh, I don't want to go to the website. And we know, especially among Gen Z populations, if they go to the website and it's ugly and they don't like the way it functions, they're never going back. You don't get that chance to provide that solution again. And so what we did was very intentionally make sure that this was extremely user friendly, that students knew I could go in here at any time and get the same access to the same kind of feedback and the same quality of career education as I would if I was sitting down with Sandra in a room one-on-one in an appointment. We also scaled that with the Career Innovation Lab that had drop-in appointments. It was drop-in only. So all throughout the lab hours, you could come in, get on a laptop, work on Resi, work on next-gen skill building platforms. But all of these things were also available right through Canvas, which they're already using for courses. And so we couldn't afford UConnect, but we created an online system for it. But if you can, certainly I think that is a product that's worthwhile. And the other thing that was really, really important and allowed us to scale was Resi. So Resi is an online platform that started in 2015 as a resume and cover letter job search technology system. They've created their own AI, so much long before the LLMs hit the market. Resi's been building their own internal systems and offering them to job seekers. But I'm just like all of you, had to deal with contracts administration. I had to deal with Zybes gutting my budget every year. I had to deal with students not having the digital fluency and technology skills, not having things aggregated for them. and not having the expertise of our staff. And so most resume solutions are not able to provide students with the level of education that they would get if they had met Murray Zemanoff or if they had met with somebody in our office. And so I was very, very critical for many years about scaling career services with technology and offboarding that to a system that I didn't trust or I didn't design or I didn't like. And we looked at the options that we currently had, and we did not like them. As IBIS had pointed out, needed to be sunset. But even before that contract was over, we started using Resi. Resi at the time was not a solution that was available to higher education institutions. But just like we would say to a student, you know, go on LinkedIn, find someone, talk to them, shoot your shot. I went on LinkedIn and I messaged the CEO and I said, hey, we don't have anything that works and I don't like anything that's out there. But I do love your product and I know you're not in this space. Would you be willing to create a contract or some kind of way where we could work out pricing that works well for us? And Jacob, who is very like minded, social impact focus, founded Resi because he saw his friends not getting jobs, even though they were well qualified, because they didn't have the social capital and they didn't have the expertise of a professional resume writer to get through that process. And so people coming from great academic programs, from great backgrounds and great skills weren't getting jobs because this was a barrier to employment. And so he founded Resi to take away those barriers. And they primarily worked in the direct to consumer market, but I asked if we could try it. And he said, absolutely. And I gave him some quotes from other vendors that were tens of thousands of dollars. And he said, hey, you know what? I'll give it to you for free. And we can try it and see if it works well for everyone. And then we'll figure something out down the road. And so we were able to bring Resi to the university as its first institutional account. And every single step of the way, every single thing that I looked at matched perfectly with our ACRW certifications, with all of the foundational knowledge and research that we know about the job search process and the resume writing process. And we were able to use this and actually trust that when our students were using it, it was kind of like going bowling with the bumpers up on the sides. They're not going to be able to make very critical mistakes because of the way that this platform is designed. And over the years, from 2015 to now, the platform has grown and we've developed a bunch of different solutions that help job seekers. And once Jacob saw what we were doing and saw what we were creating in the Canvas system, he was very interested in how can we use Resi to help students navigate AI disruption, navigate the things that are happening, and provide that accessible service because we have students that need resumes on demand, and resume was our number one most frequently booked appointment. And it was the thing we focused on primarily because it was also the gateway to the office, right? If the first thing you're coming to us for is resumes and we're not able to help you because we had 4 staff because IBS had cut everyone off the team, and now we have to serve over 7,000 students with 4 people, I can't give a consult to every single student. And so we needed something that was actually worthwhile to engage in and something that we trusted our students with. And that ended up being Resi. And it looked like from design, start to finish, was very aligned with the principles and the things that you will learn from whether it's formatting styles, eye tracking research, bullet formatting, all of these things. And it really spoke to the exact approach that we would take with students from day one. And so they didn't only just have our educational models and our examples on that platform where they could go through a micro credentialing course on resume writing and cover letter writing, but they could also now immediately put what they learned to use and practice in their own resume design. And so it didn't matter if it was 2 a.m. and they needed to make a resume because they could go onto that platform and actually create it. And they could go back through our very short videos because we know we're looking at the TikTokification of the human brain, and go back through those modules and get exactly what they needed from the career education that we offer and combine that in with Resi and what they offer within the platform. And none of that would have been possible without Marie, and our staff would not have been able to use this platform without having that foundational knowledge that was provided through her courses. And it was definitely something that led to those really strong student satisfaction numbers that we saw. And so we looked at, staff leverage, 24/7 support, smart triaging, curriculum integration, all of these things that we were able to do with Resi that help impact that ROI that led us back to having that human first design. It's not something that, most people like to think about in terms of let the student just go play with this AI technology source or platform and then not come to the office. And that was something that we wanted to protect against. We didn't want something that wasn't in line with what we teach and how we want students to move through that process. But Resi actually was a great solution for that. And we didn't want our staff coming into their jobs with, oh, I learned a little bit about this here and a little bit about this here. And like Zybe said, we wanted a uniform approach, but also uniform competence. And so we wanted the ACRW because it's rigorous. And my former staff will say, like, yeah, it's great, but oh, yeah, it's not easy. And yeah, oh, it takes some time to get done. Because, yeah, you're not sending in a few samples and mailing them in somewhere and getting feedback months later. It's you're actually learning in a live class or a pre-recorded class. You're applying things, you have homework assignments that you need to do, and then you have 3 final projects. And so this is like a really extensive certification process, but you're coming out of that with the knowledge that I don't have to worry if you're somewhere else doing a presentation and I'm not around to help. I don't have to worry if you're a new staff member coming into your job because everybody's now coming in with that knowledge that's fundamentally uniform in how we approach our conversations to students. And I would say Marie has a ton of different certification programs, but we chose the ACRW because everything boils down to starting with the resume. Most people start their career identity exploration through that resume conversation. And so I think from the ACRW and beyond, this is the foundation that most people probably need in the field is going through that process and understanding how to become an effective resume writer because you might not be writing the document for the student, but you will be helping coach and helping them create that. And you'll be working with them as a collaborator. And you'll be the person that's helping them reframe. Oh, well, I'm not really good at this, or this was just this. And we had a rule in the office. You're never allowed to say just. And so every time a student says, well, it was just a project for a class, it wasn't really meaningful, we know that that's a reframe point in our coaching conversation. And so that's something that we're able to implement in our day-to-day practices. And we achieved great things. We had almost 95% student satisfaction, but I was wanted to be conservative, so I said 94% plus. And our NESI measure on our assessment that was a post-appointment and a post-event assessment, which is 3 questions. One is a CSAT, student satisfaction. One is a belonging measure that's taken and adapted from the NESI survey. And we had 94% of students report strong belonging in the coaching conversations or resume consults or events. And then we had a 71% NPS score. And so if you've ever worked in customer service and if you've ever looked at any of that data, you know that those are really strong numbers. The current national satisfaction rate for students from inside higher ed with career services is 36. So the benchmark is 36% of students satisfied. We hit almost 95%. The NESI survey, I think, is around 80% for the benchmark of the average. We hit 94%. And to each their own and how they interpret their NPS score, but we had really strong indications that students actually thought of our office as a partner in their career development and in their college journey. And this was something that, the team is now able to expand on because I recently joined Resi as their chief learning and career architect so that I could build within Resi the same type of ecosystem and courses and help institutions access and leverage this at their institutions. And if you're interested, I'm going to put a form in the chat for you to fill out because we are offering 1 year free pilots to every single higher ed institution. And so if you want to try this and compare it with how students use this versus your other product that you're using right now, You can do that for free for 1 year. And we're also, as part of that pilot process on the application, inviting people if they want to. You don't need to do it as part of the pilot program. But if you want to join our competition for our Career Innovators Collective, we have an option for you to submit a proposal for how your office would use Resi and maybe Jobs to be Done as a framework to transform career services at your institution. And the winner of that competition will get 5 years of free institutional access to Resi. So you will get half a decade worth of free access to this technology software, which I'll demo in a minute. But it has integrated job search in there, as well as resume and cover letter writing and resignation letter writing for those who are alumni and seeking other positions, and scaffolded interview preparation. And what I loved about Resi was that this was a great solution for students who had disabilities and people on the spectrum who are neurodivergent, who didn't have the ability to perform at the highest level first time on their own doing an interview prep with video. And they had often complained to me in appointments about the fact that this was a requirement for one of their courses, but they didn't feel like they were getting wins early enough. And so it wasn't a good process. And so we knew right there the video interview from the scratch, from start, is not the solution. And because the student had a bad experience, it wasn't something they were going to hire again intrinsically on their own, meaning they were voluntarily taking away a resource for their own career development practice and preparation. And so Resi, which I love, has a scaffolded approach where you can start with typing in your responses and no one's judging your eye contact, your facial expressions. I have a cousin with Mobius syndrome who can't move parts of his face. And so he would be scored in a deficit framework on those types of platforms. But in Resi, he can type in his responses and then he can move into orating his responses. And coming soon, you'll be moving into the video feedback session. So I'm going to put that link in, and then I will open Resi and give you a quick demo of the dashboard. Let me see here if I can grab the other link, which I thought I put in here and realize now I did not. But I'll put that in there, and it'll also be in the resources that NACE puts in for those who are going to access this recording later. But to give you an overview of Resi, your dashboard will have all of the stuff that you've worked on if you've created resumes or cover letters. And then it has its own job coach agent, which we'll get into later. But if I want to go for looking into a position, of course, many schools have Handshake. Handshake is a great solution for campus recruiting. And so I would not say that this replaces Handshake in any way. But if I'm a student and I'm looking for a position, I can go in here, search by title, I can search by location, I can then filter all of these same things that you probably see on your Handshake or 1220. And then I can get certain feedback that I need in a summary. So let's just say I was looking for a marketing specialist in, I don't know, New York, New York. I can go in here and see all these jobs. What's great about Resi is that our technology actually pulls these from verified sites directly. So there's no ghost jobs on here. There's no fake jobs. There's no scam jobs. Nobody's submitting a job to us to be approved. These are directly coming from the companies themselves. We give you a short description so you don't waste your time. And then you can see the date that it was posted, and it automatically takes you from the most recent. So you don't have to play with Google search filters. If you want to tailor a resume for it, you hit target resume. If you want to save it for later, you can favorite it. If you're a fan of Steve Dalton's job search, 2-hour job search, which I am, love Steve Dalton, you can track it here instead of having to have a separate spreadsheet. So everything is integrated and streamlined. Again, reducing the friction and making this process easier and faster for the student. And then if I want to start targeting my resume to this, if I have pre-existing resumes, which I do, I can go in here and grab one. If I don't, I can create a new one. And I already have all that information coming up through here, the title of the job. I can pick my experience level. I can go in here and have it scan my LinkedIn and import my data. I could also upload a different file if I wanted to, or I could just start from scratch. And now you already see the job title, the company name, and the job description is imported in here. And Jacob is now offering free resume reviews from him, the CEO, if you wanted to do that. And then you can hit save. And then everything is integrated from start to finish right through here. All other awesome features in here. Let's say I already have an idea of what I want to do, but I've never made a resume. Well, I can go in here into the sample library and you can see verified samples and the companies at which they've been successful in moving a candidate to the interview process or getting hired altogether. And so these are things that have been verified successful at these organizations. We have them for every single field, and there's more being made every day at Resi. And then if they want to get started, it just gives them a sample to work from in terms of formatting and how we're going to be tailoring. But going back to my job search, when I hit target resume, it's now giving me all of my information about my resume and my feedback and my bullet construction tailored to that specific job. And we do a great job in career services telling people yeah, you have to, tailor your resume. But I don't think we do a great job of teaching them how because we don't have the time to go through that process for every single student. And I created courses to address that. But you don't have to do that. You can have a student come in here and Resi will teach them how. And it will also tell them why. So if you're a pain like Zybes and I, who always have to know the whys behind things, if that's the kind of student you have, that's great. They can go in here and they can start working on that. And when I'm looking at my Resi samples or my resumes that I've created, I can go in here and just pull one up. This one was made for a position at KPMG. This is how I'm putting my information in. I can toggle on and off anything I don't want to have on here. I go through my experiences. It defaults to reverse chronological, but I could always turn that off. But the one thing I want to show you isn't so much all these other great features, but I want to put in here, and I want someone to come off Zoom and get a free dot card because that's one of our giveaways, and give me the example of what a student tells you they did at their job and maybe an example of a 3 or 4 word bullet that you've seen before. Does anyone want to come off mute and give us an example?
Or they could put it in the chat right there. You go, saved customers in a
All right,
timely manner.
Lisa,
Served customers
you
in
are
a timely
getting a
manner.
free dot card, which we're going to send out to you. So we'll reach out to you after to get your info. Served customers in a timely manner. Okay. So if we're looking at that as a bullet, Resi's already instantly tracking. Needs some punctuation. Probably need to enhance this a little bit. But the student doesn't know the level of accomplishment. They don't know what the accomplishment was. They don't know how it benefited the organization. And this is, Marie, how would you rate this bullet? Thumbs down, not good. So we can go to rewrite, and then it's going to give us samples of different ways that we can talk about our experience. But what I'll see here is, oh, okay, utilize workflow and communication, streamline information. All these different samples, bullets that you're seeing here are based on the job description at KPMG that I uploaded into this earlier. So it's not just giving us, oh, this is a more sophisticated way to talk about this bullet. This is actually tailored specifically to the achievements and accomplishments that you would need to show at that job. But we also know that most people are looking for strong quantification, especially if you're going to apply a KPMG. So now we can say, give me a bullet with key numbers. So quantify my bullet for me. or give me an idea of how I can do that. Because this is really an inspiration tool. Resi doesn't know that you've actually met 300 clients. And if you haven't, you need to be honest and say that doesn't work. But it's going to give you suggestions that align with key metrics that are going to be important, not only to show the level of accomplishment, but the level of accomplishment specifically for the requirements for this job at this organization. And it's also able to give us that inference, and it's able to get us like, oh, what are the other implied things from this job description that we know that we would want to point out. And I don't have a ton of time, so I just want to move into our summary and our finish up and preview here. I don't need to save that. When you see your Resi score, you're actually getting compared to real data. So some scoring systems are based in nothing. Resi is actually built and programmed by best practices. And there's 23 different markers for how this is actually scoring you. And it's giving you specific feedback. And if you want to go fix that thing, you click the link and it brings you back. But you also get to see how your resume compares to other people who are applying for that similar type of job. And so it's not just, oh, my Resi score is a 91 and it's good for me and I'm ready to go. I can actually see where I am in real time based on other existing resumes and LinkedIn profiles and data that's posted online. So I know how competitive I'm going to be. It's going to point out other keywords that I might want to target and tailor. And if I want to add them, it's going to pick a place where it thinks it should go. And it will also let me figure out, do I want to put it somewhere else? And it's going to give me a sample bullet that I can look at. And if I want to try to fit it to one page, I don't have to go and adjust all my points after the paragraph. I hit auto adjust and it does it for us. And we could obviously do a lot of things in here beyond this, but these are the things that students really struggle with, and they're not getting the microcomputer skills that we probably got in college. And so that's a great way, again, for them to save time. And you'll see in each of these areas, there's videos that actually explain these things. So they're getting that education repeated every step of the way. And they can customize all of these, they can download them, they can save them as Google Docs, and they can share them with you. So on the institutional side, you get all this data. So when your Zybes comes up to you and says, what has your office been doing for us lately? You can say X number of students have logged into Resi, X number of students have completed at least one resume, X number of students have gone through the AI interview process. And again, in here, I can go in and paste a job description. I can pick my resume that I want it to pull from, and it's going to start scaffolding my interview experience right here. And so you might have seen a similar tool like this on LinkedIn, and we're building out on here from typing to orating, and interviewing is coming soon. But one of the other cool things that I love about Resi is our agent, and we're running close on time. But I just want to say, if I attach my resume and I say, I don't want to do tax anymore, I want to switch fields and major and work in marketing, help me do that. My personal info, all my information, all retained within here. It's not going out to the LLM. It's within Resi's AI, which is powered by LLMs in specific areas, but it's not inference chatting with an LLM the way that many other programs would, or an individual user on a chat GPT. And now you're starting to see the feedback. Hey, you want to transition to marketing? Great. In your resume optimization, here's some things that we would start to be looking at. Here's some skills that we would want to be looking at. Do you want to do X, Y, and Z things? So you have your own career coach, again, built in here. And this is not to replace a career center staff. It is to help you actually scale intelligently, because you can't meet with everyone. And we want that student that's not able to come in to still have that experience. Oh, yes, I will send all the links out, and I will also send the link right now to the application program, because any school can try Resi for free for a year. And one school will be chosen for a 5-year partnership with us for absolutely free if they apply through our link and are chosen with their proposal for how to innovate in career services.
Yeah, someone asked, how does this help with the social and emotional part of jobs to be done? And I think there's pieces in the system that are offering support around those as well. But then the idea is, instead of doing that basic resume review, right now you can dig deeper. You have a launching point for a better conversation with that student than just the basics of their resume. And you can dive deeper into the content and have that conversation that supports the deeper need.
Oh, absolutely. And what we've seen, and I've published articles on this for the Journal of Post-Traditional Careers, is that this is actually reducing the cognitive load of the user and reducing the anxiety, thereby allowing them to be more creative in that process and actually open up to learning in real time. So I posted the form if any of you want to apply for a free year of Resi. That pilot is free for everyone. And then if you want to apply to be in competition for the 5-year Innovators Program for that 5-year account, you can certainly do that as well. But you don't need to submit an application to get a free year of Resi. Anyone can do that. And Zybes and I are also offering free consultations to any individual institution that wants to learn how to use Jobs to be Done as a framework to transform either all of their office services that they're providing, or just one or two. So we're happy to meet with anyone to go into way more detail about how Resi, how any other product, and how you, without having to buy anything, can start implementing Jobs to be Done as a framework to transform your own career services and increase your student satisfaction, belonging, and partnership.
And I'll just say, if you have questions for me about other things, I did put a few YouTube links in there around ATS because there's questions around ATS. And I'll just say, Recruiter came and presented to us yesterday talking about how ATS friendly formats are the phantom job seekers are chasing that's keeping them from focusing on what really matters. So let's stop perpetuating that myth and focus on the content that shows they're qualified, instead of making an ATS friendly format, which really isn't that hard these days. Just keep it simple, keep it clean, make it easy to skim and scan for humans and the technology.
And I will say, Marie and I did submit an application to present at the conference this year to go into more depth about this. And in that, we also will be presenting a calculator on how you can actually show the savings of investing in the ACRW, in terms of what that means for your institution, in terms of dollars and cents for recruitment and retention. And so a small investment in an ACRW for your staff can lead to staff retention, but also tens of thousands of dollars in savings to your institution. All right, so it looks like we're a little over one. People are free to log off if you want, and we are happy to take questions from anyone via email. I know, Zybes, you put your LinkedIn in the chat. I'm going to put my email, which will also be available on the handouts that we have for everyone. It is sandra@resi.io. So if you have additional questions, you want to dive deeper into the theory and the frameworks, we're happy to provide that, as well as samples of our assessments or any of the other details that you might be interested in.
Excellent. Thank you so much for tuning in.
All right. I'm not sure if our NACE representative is here, but on that note, I'm going to go ahead and there you go.
Yes. Thanks so much to you all for attending, and thank you for presenting to our wonderful presenters. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.